Our next speaker is Paul Borgermans from KU Leuven, and he's going to be talking about ManGO, a web portal and framework built on top of iRODS for active research data management.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon for those in Europe. I will not keep you long from lunch there on site. But let me first introduce my two co-authors here. There's Mariana Montes and Ingrid. Ingrid is there on site. Mariana Montes is with me in the same room here. And we all work for the Research Data Management Support Group for the KU Leuven. Okay, so yes, I'm talking now about ManGO. This is this framework and web portal that we built for active research data management. And I want to emphasize a bit here also on this aspect active. We are not focusing on the full life cycle of data. So whenever data gets published, in our case, data will be pushed to a system built on top of Dataverse. We are interfacing with it, but we are not really managing that. And also in long-term cold storage options, we still have to invest a little bit. We'll provide that, but the current focus is still the active projects where data is collected, data is stored, the data is annotated with metadata, and finally the data is also processed. So what we do here is we try to provide active data management as a service to all the research groups that are working at the KU Leuven and that may need us. So we address data centralization, meaning that we avoid dispersion of data, avoid duplication, make it accessible and secure. And on the other hand, also provides the tools for data management by standardized procedures and also metadata where we can provide automation, data discovery, and let people collaborate. And we try to do this all so there we have verification from the start. Okay, so the architecture of this entire platform, which obviously involves iRODS to a large extent, is really meant to serve very many research projects. So what we do and what we did already is create different instances of iRODS, different zones serving different groups of projects. On one hand, this is done for scalability, but on the other hand, it's also sometimes necessary for data protection and security. Think here, for example, of biomedical research. We have this data platform API that we actually use to manage the many projects in the different zones. We do this, of course, for scalability, but also for security, for biomedical research, for example. We put those projects in dedicated zones. Okay. But then we have also the ManGO portal, which will be the bulk of my presentation today. But first, I'd like to show you some little things about this data platform. So it's basically also built inside the ManGO portal itself as a kind of an upfront service. And from there, we can browse all the zones that have been configured. And from there also select and add new projects in them. We launched actually not so long ago in production. That was in March of this year. And since then we have onboarded about 60 projects so far, so it goes fast. So from this interface we can add a project, but we can also add other things like Globus shares. And also we have here an interface for reporting of the usage, because we also do some billing to the research groups. We are rather cheap, but still those things have to be done. From this data platform API user interface, and we manage the project's lifecycle actually. From creating it and during this creation and also during the running, We have a few options. We have actually a kind of set of templates where we enable and disable some features, and also have a set of permissions applied by default, so researchers can start right away. This is actually also stored inside a database outside iRODS. So whenever we want to make changes, we need to apply those, and that's what this little button on the bottom is for. And finally, when a project has ended and its data is, for example, transferred to the Dataverse system that we have in our library system, we can also archive a project. And archiving basically means that we remove the permissions, but we keep all the data inside iRODS for now, at least. Okay. Now more to the bulk, which is the ManGO portal. The ManGO portal is actually set up according to what we call a generic kernel. And you can think here as basically a new implementation of metalinks. Metalinks, which allows for create, read, update, and delete operations on data and metadata. Do the same. We have also inside a search engine, which is ECAT based by default. We have all the permissions like you currently have in metalinks. But on top of that, we created some added values. For instance, with a metadata schema manager, which allows for standardization and normalization for how researchers work with metadata. Another option that we provided by default is that you can actually override the view templates that are used inside the system, because different research projects might have different needs. And so what we can do is by using the technology that we use for the view template, which is Signia 2, we can actually create customized views on data. I'll come back to that a little bit later. And finally, the kernel provides extension hooks. Extension hooks to plugins that anybody can write and that we can write also, of course. And they're basically using two kinds of mechanisms. One of them is signals. Think of a pub/sub or a publication subscription system, where you can create plugins that basically the kernel does not know about, so the main application doesn't know about it. And another one is through registration that is typically used for larger code blocks. Okay, it's all based on the Python iRODS client, and we basically use also the more popular and standard software components. Besides the kernel, we have done these optional plugins. It starts for us basically with this data platform user interface to manage research projects. We also have implemented a new system of user and group management. Come back to that also later. We have also open source integration. And basically those three plugins require a RODS admin proxy to function. Besides that, we have also admin interfaces which can report on various aspects and give some statistics. And we provide also extra tools for extracting, for example, metadata for further analysis. But all in all, for us, it is very important that metadata is driving the whole management cycles. And we can here look at, on one hand, system data, metadata, which can come from automatic metadata extraction or processing pipelines, or it can come from the user as part of annotation and documentation, and also drive workflows. Here's an example, some screenshots of parts of screenshots from metadata extraction, where we use the Apache Tika project and service that we set up inside our cloud infrastructure. where you can here see some results of FITS files, astronomical FITS files, where metadata is shown and presented to the user, and the user can decide to make a transfer of this metadata into real iRODS metadata. Another important thing is the metadata schema manager, but I'm not going to tell much about this. This is for Mariana tomorrow. You see that this is a wonderful job there. But in a nutshell, this metadata schema manager is made for flexibility and also to avoid that user make mistakes. It enables validation, it can make metadata compulsory, and it can provide, of course, domain-specific metadata. It also comes with a full life cycle. That's for tomorrow. With open search and also the ICAT-based search, we have enabled search functionalities in the portal, of course. The first way is a general search bar that's implemented with OpenSearch, and where you can search for let's say, the more obvious things like names and also selected metadata fields that we automatically index in kind of a common field. If the name matches things like comment or description or title, we think that that could be textual information that's useful for the end user. On the other hand, you can also drill down with an advanced search form and really go for very specific properties that you want to search data objects for or collections. Here's another aspect, which was also last year basically. We offer previews of selected for selected data objects. Typically, these are images, Office files, PDFs, and so on. But in any case, we make sure that the user can see at a glance what it is all about. And this is also important in this active research stage, of course. I talked already about custom views, so template views and overrides for them. This is done here in our case per zone. And it's basically configuration based. It's a configuration specified in YAML files, and it's basically a set of criteria for which you can say, okay, we want to see for path elements what is in there, and also for special metadata values. And based on that, select an alternative template than the one that is normally used for the system. An example of this is a gallery. So if you designate a certain collection with a certain metadata type, MG collection type, then there will be a gallery carousel rendered instead of the default view. Another one that is also really implemented inside the ManGO portal is trash views, but because basically a trash can is also a collection. And there we have created dedicated templates that avoid the typical metadata access because they don't make any sense in case of a trash collection. We provide also the full suite of ACL modes inside the interface. So basically everything you have in iCommands, with one caveat though, since we are project oriented, this is where we focus on. So groups that you can select are the groups from your project and not from other research projects. But for the rest, it is, for us who know iRODS, relatively straightforward. For end users, it appears that it's not so easy to grasp always, but okay, it works. We also provided bulk operations for moving, copying, deleting data objects and collections in a relatively intuitive interface. And here on the right hand, you see also the destination that you can select, which is also dynamically queried from the backend. Group management, this is also done in this realm of research projects. And this is a plugin because we are here using a RODS admin proxy account. So this is not really the standard group admin, and we need it because we want to isolate the groups between research projects. Also, when you create here a new group, there are some naming conventions. So the base name is always the research project name, and the rest is then a suffix. But for the rest, it's a very simple interface for those who have the privileges. And this is also by convention, not by using the permissions of iRODS itself. Then there are some management interfaces. Here we see a management interface for the Open Search plugin, where on one hand you can look for and inspect the status of the backend system, but also launch ad hoc index jobs, inspect the job queue if there are any elements, and also possibly intervene in some status, because sometimes you can have runaway effects during indexing. Okay, we're almost at the end now. The last element that I wanted to show you that comes from the administration interface is one of the ways that we report stuff. And here, actually, the Open Search Index is used to collect statistics on collections, any collection actually inside the zone or the entire zone. And besides the counts, it gives us what we were interested in, at least also a size distribution, for example. But we plan also to leverage also a little bit more from the possibilities of Open Search. Okay, that's all about the select feature overview, and especially the features that we developed since the last user group meeting. But there is also, of course, the future, and in the near future, we want to expand, further expand the Open Search integration, refactor also some KU Leuven specifics that are left over inside this kernel, and put them into proper extensions. We will also work on workflows where we also leverage the PEPs inside iRODS itself, and where we will put also, for example, messages into an external message broker, so other software can also be integrated easy with, well, easy, there's always a lot of work to do, but it can be integrated with iRODS and the ManGO platform as a whole. And when all of this is done in the near weeks, we hope, we will finally publish also the entire suite of source codes on GitHub, the KU Leuven GitHub account. Yeah, that's about it. So thank you. And I'm very much open to questions. And again, sorry that my laptop died. Well, it came back alive again, but really strange. Never had that before. A laptop that just dies. So.
No problem at all. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Paul?
You don't have to.
Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. I was wondering, you're focusing mainly on the active research part.
Yes.
So what, in your opinion, is the most specific thing there that you need to build or configure in iRODS for proper usage?
Well, the whole thing about metadata management and integrating all kinds of workflows. And sometimes there are quite some challenges. So we had some questions from 3D metal printing research infrastructure, where lots of images are being taken and they need to be transformed and made available to other groups. And yeah, there we are looking in how we can accomplish their workflows, and metadata is there, of course, crucial, because it is there used to assign state, and with state we can launch all kinds of workflows.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? So what, maybe you mentioned this and I just missed it, but what versions of iRODS does this project support?
Which version of iRODS? We're on 4.3.0.
Okay. All right. And there's, I'm assuming there's no plans to support 4.2.12 in any way.
Well, actually, the ManGO portal so far doesn't use 4.3 features heavily. So previously we were on 4.11. And there it all started, by the way. And I'm pretty sure that 4.11, 4.12 will work properly.
Excellent.
4.2, not 11.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.